very exciting class. And today we're going to be talking about some very important things. We're going to be talking about how to create change in your life, but not only how to create that change, but how to handle that change. We all want change in our life. We all see things that we would like to be better or we would like to be different. But how do we actually go about creating that change in our life? How do we tell life itself that I'm ready to make this transition? I'm ready to make this transformation and see our life begin to respond to our own sayings. And the second thing we're going to talk about is how to handle it. Because change can sometimes be difficult, especially when we're so comfortable in being in our own comfort zone. When we're forced to step out of the known into the unknown, it can sometimes cause some emotions to come up. So how do we process an emotion? How do we change our thought patterns and begin to see our life in a different way? Now, before we start, I want everybody watching to just take a moment and to connect with yourself. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a deep breath in, and then we're just going to release it. We're going to take another deep breath in, and we're going to release it. If you are drawn to this video at this time, I want you to begin to ask yourself why. Why are you here tonight? Why have life caused you to be right here and right now listening to these words? I like to believe that everybody that's attracted to this video is not only going through a change in their life, but the change they are going through is such a positive change that the words that flows through this video will be exactly what you need to hear to navigate yourself through it. All right? So I want to begin today by telling everybody to go ahead and answer or write down 3 questions. The first question you're going to write down is, what is your mental image? You don't have to know the answer to it yet, because I haven't told you guys quite yet what it is, but I want you to go ahead and write that question down. What is your mental image in life? The second question I want you guys to write down is, what is your strategy? The first question, what is your mental image? The second question is, what is your strategy? And the third question is, where is your pressure? Now, right now, those 3 questions may not mean anything to you, and that's okay. As we go through today's lesson, you're going to understand not only these 3 questions, but why they make sense in your life in the first place. So I want to, before we start, give everybody a chance to get in here. Continue welcoming everybody as they come. Welcome, 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 guys. Welcome in, welcome in. So let's go ahead and start with today's lesson. And I want to start by telling you guys a story. And the story starts like this. There was once upon a time a town called Olympus. And in the town of Olympus, there was a grand event hosted once every 10 years called the Race of Olympus. Now, the entire town loved the Race of Olympus. For each year, the prize for the race was 10 million clams, which around in our world would be somewhere around $1 million. So this was a big prize. Now, many showed up to compete in this big race, but only 3 was chosen. I want you to imagine all of these people right here ready for this race that's hosted only every 10 years, but only 3 of these people are chosen. Everybody who wants to compete in this race must put their name in this hat. And as all the names go in, 3 names are pulled randomly, and those 3 people are chosen to compete in this race for this 10 million clams. Now, many people actually debate on what it will take to win a race like this. Some people think that strategy is the best way forward when it comes to racing, while other people think that strength and determination is the key to winning any race at all. And some people even say, leave it up to faith and let's see what happens out there. However, no matter what the best way of winning this race was, every player that came to compete can agree on one thing. And that one thing is they want to win that $10 million or that 10 million clams. Now, every player can agree on that fact. But this by no means was an easy race. You see, each racer must complete the challenges inside of the race. The race came with 2 challenges. And the 2 challenges are, number 1, what we call the rocky roads. Now, the rocky roads was a pathway filled with spikes and nails, making it difficult for any racer to travel upon it. The second challenge that these racers must complete was called the Lazy Lagoon. Now this path was filled with quicksand, making it very difficult to move forward because you can easily get stuck while traveling. Now the challenges of the race each year were announced 1 week before the race began. This is giving the contestants a chance to actually prepare for this amazing challenge. Now on the day that it was announced, the 3 racers that was chosen to compete was a tortoise, a hare, and a snail. Now each one had their own unique approach to how they're going to win this race. The hare, on one hand, he knew that he was the fastest rabbit in the world. He knew that he would win this race easy, and his approach was strategy. He knew that all he really needed to do was run really, really fast, and if he could do that, he would easily win this race. Now the second contestant was a little bit different from the hare. The second contestant was what we call a tortoise. And this tortoise really didn't know. If anything, he was confused on why he would even try to run a race in the first place. He thought that he was slow and that he will only embarrass himself out there. But one thing this tortoise did know is that he wanted to win those clams. So his approach was that he was going to try really, really, really hard. And then when he gets tired, he'll just give up and rest. Our last competitor was the snail here. Now the snail chose to take no approach at all. He didn't know what to expect out there, therefore he did not know what he would need to do. But he was okay not knowing. He was okay with the fact he didn't know, and he said, let's just see what happens out there. Now all 3 contestants here had a very unique approach to the race. However, only one contestant can truly win. So on the day of this race, all the fans placed their votes based off who they thought would win. Many voted for the hare as they believed in his ability to run really fast. Some people voted for the tortoise as well as the snail, for they knew that slow and steady always wins the race. But who will actually win, no one knew that. You see, on the day of the race, the arena was filled with exciting energy. Coming from friends, family, spectators, everybody was excited about this race. And as the race was about to begin, we have the hare here. He was feeling confident, looking up in the stands, smiling, knowing that he could outrun a snail and a tortoise any day of the week. Now the tortoise, on the other hand, he was looking down, still very confused, still depressed, not knowing how he could possibly win a race against a hare, but deep down knowing that he truly wanted to. While the snail, on the other hand, he showed no expression at all. His eyes were only focused on himself. The only thing he did notice that day was how wet the ground was. He noticed how the ground felt really good on his belly. It was wet and it's moist, and we all know that snails love some good moisture. So each one was in their own headspace at the beginning of the race, but all 3 of them heard something that was in common. They heard the official said, on your mark, get set, go. The hare took off running and the race began. Now the hare did exactly what he came to do. He left the tortoise and the snail in his dust. You see, the hare got to the first challenge before the snail could even get off the line. And as he got to the first challenge, he got to what we call the Rocky Road. Now, the Rocky Road was a simple challenge for the hare. He sprinted through that rocky road just like he knew he would, leaping over all of the spikes, dodging all of the nails along his way. He completed this first challenge in little over 2 minutes. The crowd was completely cheering for him. Hare, hare, hare. He's jumping over spikes. He's dodging out of nails. He completed this challenge just like that. Now, once he completed this challenge, here comes the tortoise. The tortoise reached the first challenge, and he immediately started his strategy. He immediately summoned all of his strength and began to full-out sprint towards the end of this first challenge. He made it past the spikes, he moved through the nails, and finally, he got to the other side. However, because he was trying so hard, it made him extremely exhausted. So he decided to just take a rest outside of the first challenge. He completed the first challenge. But now I'm gonna need a little breather, said the tortoise. Now after the tortoise and the hare completed this challenge, in comes our snail. Now again, the snail had no approach to this race at all. He was actually more concerned with how the first challenge felt on his belly. He noticed how the gravel felt and how the spikes felt, and he didn't like this feeling compared to what he was feeling at the starting line. So he decided to crawl up within his shell. and decide to roll through the first challenge. Now, what the tortoise and the hare failed to realize about this first challenge was the first challenge was positioned downhill. You see, once he began to roll, that snail began to pick up momentum, and he completed the first challenge in just 55 seconds. The crowd went insane yelling his name. Snail, snail, snail. The snail rolling and rolling and rolling and having himself a great time. But even though he completed it faster than the hare was still ahead of him. You see, the hare got to the second challenge way before the snail. Still ahead of the rest, the hare gets to this first or the second challenge, which is called the lazy lagoon. Now, the lazy lagoon is filled with quicksand. And the hare began to notice this quicksand and said, you know what? This quicksand ain't got nothing on this hare. So the hare began to run as fast as possible over the sand. And by his third step, he got stuck. And the hare began to sink. But this is no match for me, he said. He said, I'll just run faster than this sand can sink me. And he never realized something that we all know. And what that is, the faster you try to run in quicksand, the more you sink. So the harder he tried, the more he sunk down, and ultimately, his strategy has failed him. And he is now stuck and out of the race. Moving on to the tortoise, awakening from his nap, the tortoise noticed the snail had finally caught up beside him. And he said, oh, I better get going. So the snail began to walk again, the tortoise began to walk again, leaving the snail behind. And as the tortoise reached the second challenge, he noticed that the hare was stuck. And he thought to himself, well, maybe I can win. This excitement and this enthusiasm he felt supported him in his strategy as he channeled all of his power and all of his will into getting past this second challenge. Off to the move he was. He was moving effortless and easy, and he never sank because he didn't weigh as much as the hare did. And as soon as he got to the end, he grew a little bit tired again. And he said, you know, this is enough trying. I'm going to just take a rest. And as soon as he stopped, he began to sink. And as he slept, he became stuck. And ultimately, his strategy failed him as well. Now, as both of them got stuck, the snail finally approached this second challenge. He noticed both the hare and the tortoise stuck in the quicksand, but this brought no reaction to him. The first thing he really noticed was how good this sand felt on his belly. He liked this sand better than he liked the starter line, and definitely better than how he liked the first challenge. You see, this sand was very smooth and very earthy, just the way he liked it. And he began to flow through this sand in the slowest and the easiest way possible. He took so long reveling in how good it felt to be there that it took him nearly 10 minutes to complete the challenge. But because all the other contestants were stuck, he won the race. So the 10 million clams was easily and effortlessly won by the snail. Now I want to ask everybody here a question. And the first question I want to ask you today is, why did the hare get stuck? The hare was the fastest one out there. We can easily say that the hare should have won this race. But why did he get stuck? You see, the hare was what we call overly knowing. He knew that he was fast. And he knew and thought that he was so fast that he never even decided to think about, maybe I need to be slow. When we become hooked on our own knowing, we take the same approach over and over and over again, just like the hare, until just like the hare, we become stuck. So now that we know why the hare got stuck, let's talk about the tortoise. Why did the tortoise get stuck? You see, in this case, the tortoise was what we call the not knower. We saw why the hare got stuck. He was overly knowing. He knew he was fast. But why did the tortoise not knowing cause him to get stuck? You see, he was confused and depressed because he did not know how he could possibly win and didn't believe he could. But he knew he wanted to now, don't get me wrong. And because he didn't believe, this approach reflected within his racing. His approach was to try really, really hard and then give up and rest. The part of himself that was trying really, really hard was what we call his knower. He knew he wanted to win, so he had some effort in him. He wants to win this 10 million clams. So the part of him that really, really tried was that part. But the part of him that decided to give up and rest, this was called his not knower. You see, his confusion and his depression ultimately slowed him down, and he had no choice but to take a nap, leaving him stuck in a cycle. You see, the hidden cycle that the tortoise was in was his depression was forcing him to try really, really hard. And then his trying really, really hard made him so tired, which then triggered his depression. And the cycle happened over and over again until ultimately he became stuck. If we become the not knower in our life, we can find ourselves trying really, really, really hard at something and then giving up just before the breakthrough. Only thing the tortoise really had to do was take a few more steps and he would have won the race. But because he was so exhausted and so tired, he gave up just before his breakthrough. Okay, so my next question for you guys is, why did the snail win? You see, the snail had no approach, so if anybody should have won, it should have been somebody else. But what I want you to see about the snail was the not knower, and he was the knower. He didn't know that he could win or how he would win, but he also knew that he didn't know and was okay with not knowing. Because he was both not knowing and knowing, this left him open to know. You see, when the snail got to the first challenge, how did he know the role? He didn't know how he was going to win this race, but every time he somehow did the right thing. I want you guys to remember, what was the snail doing at the starting line? While the hare was looking up into the stands, smiling, and the tortoise was down, what was the snail doing? You see, the snail was focused on himself, on how good and moist the ground was. He was focused on what was feeling good for him. But when he got to that first challenge, how did he know the roll, which ultimately made him faster? You see, he decided to roll because he didn't like how the gravel felt underneath his belly. When the snail got to this second challenge, or the first challenge, he didn't like how it felt, so he had no choice but to roll, which was ultimately the right decision. What about the second challenge? What did he do when he got to the second challenge? How did he know to go slow over the sand instead of rushing over it? Well, he knew to go slow over it because it felt so good to him. He wasn't even concerned about winning the race. He took his time because it felt good, and that was ultimately the right thing. What I want you guys to see is it was his feelings that guided him to his destination. Just like the snail here, we are all here to win a prize tonight. And tonight we're going to talk about it. And the first question I want to ask everybody is the first question that was on our list, which was, what is your mental image? What is your version of the 10 million clams here tonight? Where do you want to go in your life? I want you to notice that our minds can be anywhere at all except right here, right now. You could think about that, you could think about this, you could think about there, you could think about the past, and you could think about the future, but you can't think about right now. Even if somebody came up to you and said, hey buddy, do you want a bag of chips? And offer you something, and in your mind you say no. Your mind is still responding to something that has already happened. Our mind is designed to only choose a destination. You see, our destination is where we travel towards in life. Your mind's job is to hold a vision that our spirit leads us to. But many times our mind can be all over the place, jumping from the past to the future, to him, to her, to I know she's not wearing that shirt with those shoes, and I know he don't have that with that, and I know they ain't doing that. Your mind can be everywhere, not really holding a destination for you. But we're going to change that tonight. And what is that change that you actually want to make? I want everybody here to go ahead and join the call. In the comment section, you will see a link that will allow you to join our Zoom call so that we can begin understanding how you can create your own mental image. But as you guys join, I'm going to continue forward. So I want you to logically connect with your vision here. So our next question is going to be, what is your strategy? What do I mean when I say, what is your strategy? Once you understand your mental vision and you have your destination in your life, now we got to talk about your strategy. I want you to logically connect with your vision through your mind. What this means is, in order to logically connect with your vision, you have to initiate the energy. What do I mean when I say initiate the energy? To initiate your energy, you got to begin moving towards your vision. So what I want everybody here to do is to create 3 steps that you're going to take towards your vision. These 3 steps have to be broken up over the next 3 days. For example, let's say that your end destination is to lose weight, right? Your 3 steps can be as simple as this. Step number 1, I'm going to eat 1 item less tomorrow. This is a simple and easy step you can take towards your mental destination. Step number 2, after I eat something less tomorrow, the next day, I'm going to go for a walk. Now, this walk can be anywhere. It can be to the mailbox and back. It can be down the block and back. It could be 3 or 4 times to your bathroom. This is an easy and simple step you can take towards your destination. And the third one, you'll say, on the 3rd day, I'm going to join the Weight Watchers community. Now, these 3 steps you can take towards your destination with your physical body. The point of these three steps here is you don't need your mind. You don't need to think about eating something less. If you eat 4 steaks one day, the next day only eat 3. You don't have to think about that. You don't have to think about going for a walk. You just get up and you do it with your body. Now, if you are looking to understand what your 3 steps is, down below there is a link. Again, go ahead and join the chat, guys, and we'll go ahead and get that flowing and help you understand your 3 steps. All right? So my next question for you guys. What is your pressure? And before we get into what is your pressure, I want you to understand that, does this mean that you got your mental image and you got your 3 steps? Does this mean that you're going to lose 100 pounds the next day? Of course not. We're not doing this for results quite yet. But the reason why we're doing this is to get the energy moving. You see, we're beginning the manifestation process. Manifestation is a flow of energy. Your mind's job is to hold the vision, but your spirit is what creates the path towards it. Do you want your path towards your vision to be an easy path or to be a hard path? Everybody here should be saying an easy path. We're not here on earth to live a hard life. That makes no sense. Well, how could you know how to make your path towards your destination easy if you don't even know how to get there? This is where your flow come in. Your flow is a path that is here to guide you towards your destination. It is your own path created by the universe, created by God, Allah, Source, whichever way you want to call it. Your path is your unique path and is filled with ease and fun. This path is here to guide you and lead you to your highest outcome. Now, to get on this path, you got to start walking. And this is where our mental image come in. And this is where our 3 steps come in. By creating a mental image and taking 3 steps towards it, what you're telling the universe is, I know where I'm going and I'm headed in the right direction. Now, it is the law that the universe must begin to match that energy. So what will begin to happen next is exactly what happened with the snail as he got to his first challenge. I want you to see that when he started the race, he entered the flow towards his mental destination. What was the snail mental destination? He wanted to win the race. He didn't know how, but just like everybody else, that mental destination was those 10 million clowns. And when he started the race, he entered his flow. But what happened when the snail got to his first challenge? When he got to the first challenge, he didn't like the feel of the rock, so he decided to roll, which made him go faster. So likewise, when you start taking those 3 steps towards your destination, you will enter your flow towards your mental vision. And just like the snail, when you enter the flow, your flow will start to ask you to make adjustments and maneuvers along the way so that you can stay in the flow. Take a second to think about it. Who here gets in their car, get on the road, and just go straight? Nobody, right? Sometimes you got to move and you got to maneuver in order to stay on the right path towards your destination, which may be work, which may be the grocery store, which may be the park. Sometimes you got to switch lanes. You got to take an exit. You got to take a right. You got to stop at a stoplight. So likewise, your flow in life is going to ask you to maneuver. It's just going to do that. So just like it did for the snail. So how do we know when to adjust? One word: pressure. You see, the snail did not like the feeling of the rock underneath his belly, so he decided to roll. But how does it feel for us to notice something that we don't like? How does that feel? You see, the first thing that happens is we start to feel pressure in and around our heads. That's called anxiety. The second thing that starts to happen is we begin to feel pressure in and around our body. That's called emotions. when this begins to happen, just like the snail, we got to roll. But how do we roll? How do we maneuver? How do we adjust? We do this by releasing the pressure once it arises, by relaxing and entering the flow. So when you start taking 3 steps towards your mental image, you might feel some pressure in your body. You might feel some pressure that says, okay, sit back down and let's not do what you know you should do. Let's not do that thing. Let's not go for that walk. Let's not eat one thing less. Let's not make that change. And that pressure may come up, but how do we respond to this pressure? We respond by releasing it and continuing to move forward in a relaxed state. So my third question here is, what is your pressure? And I want you to be able to not only understand what your pressure is, but understand how to find it in your life. Let's take this example, losing weight here again. And guys, the words I'm going to use here are meant to be gentle. So brace up here. So what this actually means is right now, you see yourself, if you're trying to lose weight, you see yourself as being overweight. You're weighing too much. Because you wouldn't be trying to lose weight if you thought you were the perfect weight. Am I right about that? So a part of you wants to be skinny or skinnier. That's in the future here. But the other part of you thinks that you're fatter or bigger than what you should be. So when you begin to move towards losing weight, when you begin to look at the mirror, what you're going to see? The part of yourself that made you believe that you were fat. And when these two separate ideas, if I want to be skinny, but I think I'm fat, I don't want to be skinny, and I think I'm fat, these two ideas come together and clash. This is the pressure you feel in your mind, in your body. This is the pressure you feel as you try to create change in your life, as the old and the new clash. But what you must do when this come up, because this is only your body trying to release this old you. You see, your mind you have to process that emotion and release it. You have to process that thought process and release it. Because if you continue thinking it and if you continue feeling it, you're going to stay connected to this version of you in the past. So when this pressure arises, you must release it and continue to move forward, shedding the old as you enter the new. The faster you can release this pressure, the more flow and the more ease and the more grace you will have in your life towards your destination, and also the quicker you'll get there. So what is your pressure? I want you to understand each desire comes with a pain point. I'll give you another one. Let's say you want to be a better actor. You want to be an actor. So the future you will see yourself as an actor. I'm a dazzling actor. I can get on the stage. I can do all the moves. I can point this way. I can point that way. That's the future you, right? But the past you is what's creating the future you. So the past you see yourself as, well, I'm not that much of a good actor right now because that's why I want to be a good actor, right? So the past you won't see yourself as the future you do. So as you start to move towards the future you, there will be times that the past you come up and say, hey, you know what? We're not that good of an actor though, right? And as these two ideas come together, that is your pressure in life. I want you to realize that all the pain that you feel throughout the day is not coming from the people around you, not coming from the situations, the circumstances, but the only thing that's happening is inside of you, there's two ideas that's clashing. And if you can see both of those ideas and choose not to play a part of it, but release it, it's okay to feel the pressure now because you've got to process that feeling. But how can you be inside of the pressure but not fight with the pressure? That's what I mean when I say moving towards the future in a relaxed state. It's okay to feel not okay. It's okay to think not okay, but understand that you're not a thought nor an emotion. You're something higher than that. And once you start to do that, you start to relieve and release yourself from all mental and emotional constraints that could or would hold you back. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about tonight is what begins to happen as you release this pressure. When you take this relaxed approach to life and the pressure comes up and you like, buddy, I see you there, but it's okay. Just like the snail did not know what he was going to do. But the snail was like, we'll figure it out when we get out there, right? And this careless but also careful mentality is what led him to knowing. So what will happen when you guys start to do this? So when you begin to release pressure, you will notice that your mind goes silent. You know that little voice in there that's always narrating throughout the day? Sometimes it can go on so long that you don't even realize it's happening, right? Like you start to think that little voice is you. You believe everything it says, and you become like a a bot. Like I call that being in a bot, asleep mentality, right? Every time they say, look there, you look there. Look right, you look right. And your mind, your life could easily be confusing. Because think about how active the mind is. Think about how you can possibly jump from the past to the future in like 3 seconds. And if you believe every word it says, then every time you interact with anything, this is what you're doing, right? So how could you move forward in your life if all you're doing is this all the time? Eventually, you got to let that mind go. So when you begin to release pressure and take a step back, your mind also goes silent because it needs your energy to do this, right? The mind would have no power if you didn't believe in it. It'll come up and say, hey, look over there. You'll just be like, right? Or maybe you don't even do that. maybe you don't even hear it. So if you're like, hey, look over there, you're like, yeah, you don't exist. So the first thing what happens, your mind will give up and go silent, almost as if you slipped out of time. And I want you guys to really understand this concept here because it's big. Time, the way we see time is all in our mind, right? The future, that's in our mind. The past, that's in our mind. The only way you can get to time is to think about it. What I'm going to do tomorrow. Oh, I know she ain't do that back then. Oh, where I'm going to go Friday. You can only think about it because it's not right now, right? Like, process that, guys. Think about that. Like, I don't want you to just hear me, but when you go to bed tonight, I give you permission to let that thought play a little bit. Like, time is what we make it. So when you silent your mind, you'll slip out of time and you'll enter this state of being where you're in the now moment. You will find yourself in the present moment not really thinking about what to do next. Like, everything just is. You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to have an understanding on this person and that person. It really helps you, this is going way off track, but it really helps you in your relationships too. Because, this off track, but let's keep going with it. Because if you think about it, relationships is just an exchange of, I will pretend who you think you are if you pretend I am who I think I am. What do I mean by that? If you walk up to somebody, right, and they feel that they are a superhero, right, and they got their chest out, they got their cape in the wind, and you walk up to them and you start to talk to them like they're an ant. You walk up and you say, hey, ant, how are you doing today, little ant? And you start to treat them as if you're plankton or something like that. The superhero might look at you like, bro, you're not talking to me. Like, you're not talking to me because that's not who I think I am, right? So the game of relationships is simply you pretend I am and I'll pretend you are. So how do we get out of that? We stop pretending. We just be ourselves. We come into the present moment and we say what we feel, just like the snail did. We only do as we feel and what's true. But that's relationships. But when you begin to not think about what to do next, you find yourself here and now, in the present moment. And your mind will come back up trying to convince you to think about what to do next. It will try to make you panic, like, oh, you're not thinking right now. And if you're not thinking, how can you be prepared? What if this happened? What if that happened? And you're not thinking about it. If you would have thought about it, you could have seen it first. Your mind would try all of these little, hey, look over here's. But you also have to release that too. And I'm not saying that the pressure won't come up from it, but it won't be, if you can stop the pressure at the head, it won't get to the emotions. The emotions only kick in after the thoughts. I want you to realize that your emotions only flare up after you think about something. If you're thinking about something happy, your emotions say, oh, we're happy. If you're thinking about something sad, your emotions say, oh, we're sad. If you think about something fearful, your body say, oh, we're fearful, right? So if you can stop it at the head, then you won't have to lose your balance in the emotions. So the first thing you want to do is stop it at the head. And once you do this, you will enter the flow of your life. Now, the flow is what I love to call the game of the universe. You see, while you are in the flow, all you really have to focus, and I'm about to give you guys a big secret here, a huge secret. Once you're in the flow of your life, all that you really have to do is focus on your next step. Taking those 3 steps we're talking about today. Come back down in the present moment, release all the pressure, release all the thoughts, release everything, and just focus on taking those 3 steps we talked about here tonight. And once you begin doing that, something amazing began to happen. You see, somewhere in between those 3 steps, I said break it up in 3 days, right? So you got 3 days to take your 3 steps. And somewhere in between those 3 days, the universe, God, Allah, source, angels, whichever way that resonates with you the most, It's going to send you a sign of what to do next. And once you complete that last step, the sign will either be sent to you by a person, a commercial, maybe you hear something on the radio, or maybe even a thought. Your mind will somehow turn divine. It's not really your mind, but that's another video. But maybe even a thought will enter your state of being that says something. But how will you know that this that's on the radio station is for you? Or this on the billboard is for you? Or this person just said something you wanted to hear? Or this actual feeling you're feeling within yourself is the right way to go? The way you're going to know it is because it's going to make you extremely, not say extremely, because once you're in the flow, you're going to be able to feel this extremely. It's going to make you extremely happy. You will feel inspired. I want you to realize that when you enter the flow, you're like really calm. You're balanced. You're not very much reactive to your environment. Everything is. Everything's left alone. If you see somebody breaking into a car over there, it's like, it's like no judgment. Like at the same time, like I'm not gonna say that's good. I'm not gonna say that's bad. Like it is. If you see somebody skydiving, you're like your whole reality is. And as you're in your flow and you're balanced and calm throughout the day, and then life sends you a sign out of nowhere, your state of being is going to go from flow to super excited. Oh, whoa, what's that? You're going to feel joy come to you rather than you trying to go to joy. And that excitement, that happiness is going to be so potent in you that it's going to be hard for you to miss it. And once you follow that inspiration, even if it's a commercial that say 395-422 and we'll come get that car for you, and you sing along and you're like, yeah, I like that. Like, maybe you should go check out that car place. Like, maybe you should go that direction, right? Or maybe it's an ad that you see online that really speaks to you and makes you, that's it right there. That's the feeling you're going to feel. And once you follow that inspiration, you will begin to then be led by the universe. So once that inspiration kind of slows down a little bit, because I want you to realize once you go up, you got to come back down. So don't get attached to going up, but that's another video. But once you come back down, the universe is going to send you another inspiration. I'm going to follow that. And then I'm going to follow that. And then you'll begin to be guided by the universe. The 3 steps that we made today was just to get the energy moving towards our destination. So that the universe, so that life, so that God, so that Allah, so that whatever you call true for you may step in and begin to lead you through inspiration. This is how the process works, guys. Once you begin to apply what we said here tonight, your life is going to change in transformative ways. I find that life itself is only waiting for people to believe. Because we do have free will. Like, we got to realize that. Even if we wanted all of these things, right? And even if we really wanted that change, right? The universe, God, Allah, life can't just come in and say, here it is, right? It wants to, and we can be rest assured in that. But because we got free will, we got to start making those steps. And that's what the 3 steps are about today. So what I want everybody here to do was, number 1, create your mental image. Once you got it, number 2, create your 3 steps and logically connect with your mental image so that you can initiate the energy. Once you got it, number 3, identify your pressure points. You might not be able to get them all. You might secretly really not like bananas and didn't even know that about yourself. The next time you're around bananas, you feel this pressure come up and you're like, bro, like, what's the beef with bananas? So like it's a whole discovery about who you really are along the way, by the way. But once you start taking those 3 steps, understand your pressure and begin to release the pressure, enter the flow, and start taking those steps and wait for that inspiration. And your mind may come up and say, is the inspiration coming today? If you're thinking about if the inspiration is going to come, you're in your mind. Release it. So if you guys enjoyed tonight's class as much as I did, and you guys actually took the time and you wrote down those beautiful 3 questions there, once you guys begin to see the answers flow into your life, I want you to come back to tonight's live or go over to my page over on my website, the link is below, and write all about it. Tell others how your life is transformed, because spirituality is passed through experience. When you can tell someone what you've been through and how you changed and how this has impacted you, that's naturally creating inspiration for them. You see? You guys are here today listening to me, and I am the inspiration for you. And as you go online and post your stories, you then become the inspiration for me. See how the flow works? Inspiration is all around us. From people to commercials to radios, everything is a walking movement of meaning. So guys, be sure you share that, and be sure you come back next Wednesday. Because next Wednesday we're going to have another class. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the flow and talk about what begins to happen even further as you start taking these steps. So guys, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I will see everyone on Wednesday. Oh, well, let's see what date that is. It's going to be the 28th, guys, on the 28th. See you then.